You are about to enter the world of flipping houses for rookies. Are you ready to enter this zone of creative real estate like none other? What do you think, Peter?
Hey, you got a different introduction. That was very Rod Serling like Twilight Zone. You're
Twilight
about
Zone.
you're
It's
about
Bill's planet. Why not?
you're about to enter a new reality.
All right, we're on episode number 376. That would be 376 podcasts on creative real estate. What's your excuse now? You want free information? You got 400 hours of free information. Had you made a deal yet?
Well, I'm doing research.
Oh, well, go no further. You got 400 hours of research.
Yeah.
All right, here's the title for today's podcast. How to talk to creative real estate sellers properly.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the description. How do you reach out to strangers and get trust and engaging conversation that ends up with you owning or controlling a house that this stranger owns? Sounds like magic, right? Picture this. You strike up a conversation with a stranger, and by the end, they are practically handing you keys to a house. Sound like a fairy tale? In this single episode, we will unravel the enchanting journey of how a genuine connection and the right words can open doors you never imagined. Discover what we do to get our deals that sounds like casual talk, but actually delves into the seller's life and finds out what they need and want so you can deliver what the seller yearns for and make a deal. These practical insights will transform your interactions into tangible results if you follow what we're about to reveal. If you have ever wondered how legend deals are made, this podcast episode is your gateway into that world of easily making deals. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let's pull the curtain back on this captivating journey together so you can have the power to change your real estate destiny.
Here we go.
We have started. All right, before we get started, we are going to cover some of our basic housekeeping type things. First thing is wherever you're watching us or listening to us, please subscribe right now. Right now, subscribe. And if I guess I'm full of energy today. And if make sure you like us or check us off or leave us a comment wherever you're watching us or listening to us on whatever platform you decide to grab this information. Also, I have a very exhilarating link in the description that will help this podcast a whole lot. I actually did an entire 2-hour Zoom call to my private coaching clients and a few others on this exact topic. So I strongly suggest you go get that information. It is free information that you can get that will expound upon what we are about to talk about today. So my intention is you listen to this podcast and you watch that video, and you will be able to make deals if you follow along. Okay.
Okay.
Also, if you have any questions about this podcast, you can go to Flipping Houses for Rookies, top right hand side. There's a support button. You can send me a support ticket there. I will admit the last 2 or 3 weeks I haven't been exactly good with that, but I'm usually in there once a day or a couple times a day. Last couple of weeks I've been kind of on a little bit of a sabbatical, and but with that, that's where you normally get questions. And the last thing that we need to tell you is that on Thursday mornings, 9:30 a.m., Eastern Standard Time. We actually record this podcast and we live stream it to Facebook, to oh my goodness, YouTube and LinkedIn. So if you wanted to participate in the podcast, you can go to one of those platforms, and wherever they allow you to type, you could go there and ask questions, and it pops up on my screen. And I will ask questions pertaining to the podcast. Other questions I will not answer because I don't want to divert the podcast. I can answer those in the support calls. Okay, Pete, we got a lot to cover today.
Okay.
I want to dive right in to make sure we get it all in.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Let's go.
All right. So I want to make sure I set the pace today. Okay. And what this podcast is all about before we get too far into my intentions to help everyone today.
Okay.
So the first several minutes of today's podcast, I'm going to talk about what nobody ever talks about. But without this conversation, you'll be doing it backwards.
Ooh.
And 99% of everybody does it this way. So don't think that I am off on a tangent, because I'm not. I promise to bring it back. And by the end of this podcast, I will be spouting off a script that I have not released publicly. My Creative REI Reply users have to pay quite a bit of money, hundreds and hundreds of dollars, to get into the system and actually get this script. So the only place that I have ever talked about this script or used this script is in Creative REI Reply, which is a paid subscription. It's a couple $100 a month to get it. And in my coaching group, which is more than a couple $100 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the first time I've talked about this script, and probably the last time I will talk about this script. So I strongly suggest you stay on to the end of the call. And that script is not in the link. I'm not giving it away. Okay, so there you go. You should stay to the end of this podcast, but I need to what is the word I want? Preface it. That's the word. I want to preface it with why the script works so good. And we've never talked about this, or we have, but I'm going to take the last 3 or 4 podcasts and I'm going to bring them all together today. Okay, and I'm going to talk about all that. Okay, because we've had like a little mini series going here with how to do things. Does this make sense?
Yeah, we've been on a series, and it all hangs together. So you're wrapping it up in a nice little bow today?
Yeah. Okay. And then next week I have a surprise, or next at 377 I have a surprise. Okay. So here's what I mean. And this is where the enchanting journey begins. Okay. I'm sorry, I got a fan on over here. It is hot. It was when I got to Florida, it was hot. Oh my God, it was hot. Oh, the humidity. And then for about a week, it cooled off. Well, last night I was around 7 or 8 o'clock, and I went outside to have a cigar, and I had to make some phone calls. And man, I was just sitting, and there was no sun out or anything. It was because it was 7:30 at night, and I was just sweating.
Wow.
So it's hot again. But Pamela told me, I woke up this morning and I turned the news on, and there was a tornado here.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was bigger than it was, but it was on North Clearwater Beach. And,
really? Right there?
Yeah, and it took out 2 or 3 houses. That's it. I mean,
Jeez.
I don't mean like that's it. Like I feel bad for the people the houses took out, but
yeah, but tornadoes don't do it like adds enough and they stop like that usually. I mean, it's not even on. They don't even have that on the news or the weather. Like it wasn't even a thing.
But Pamela said to me this morning, my wife Pamela said to me, "Did you hear the thunderstorms?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I slept through the entire thing.
Yeah, Mr. Heavy Sleeper, good for you.
All right, so almost 99. Anyways, I was complaining because I got the fans on because it's so hot. So my papers keep blowing all over here. So back to the podcast. Almost 99% of all real estate entrepreneurs think they need to find a seller, then convert them into doing a deal.
find a seller, and then convert them. Okay.
Does that make sense?
When you say convert, you're just talking about like convincing them to do it from a
Right. Like,
from a maybe
yeah,
to a yes.
yeah. Like a lot of rookies like look for my scripts and they want to hear how I do it, and they think that there's some magic words, like abracadabra. Oops, I got a deal. And they think that they're just going to like convince someone to do a deal,
Yep.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
so that's a lie.
Mm.
That's the number one lie. You don't convince anybody to do anything in creative real estate. You do not do that. So the first secret I'd like to reveal today is I don't do that at all. I
Ah.
don't convince anybody to do anything.
Mm.
I'm not trying to sell them. I'm not trying to trick them. I'm not trying to manipulate them. I'm not trying. In fact, if you listen to my conversations, which Peter, you have a lot,
Mm-hmm.
the very first thing that you had said to me when we first went out, started going to houses together, was, I'm very surprised at how casual the conversation is. Like there was some sales presentation or some procedure or some, like here's the close and here's the pre-qualifying and here, all that kind of stuff. Right.
Well, even more to me was like the lack of that serious, stiff professionalism when you're
Mhm.
sitting across a desk from somebody, that they're like in a role. Like they don't talk like that normally when at the supermarket, but you see them at the bank and they talk to you in like a very serious, professional way. And it's not really real. And then you're just like talking to people.
You mean
It's
I
kind of
show up?
weird.
I show up with shorts and flip flops and a cigar in my pocket.
Embarrassingly so sometimes. Embarrassingly so.
Nobody ever
Boy,
said anything to me though.
boy, this guy, what are they going to say? You're taller than them. This guy is confident. He's not even trying to show off. What's that little car he's driving?
Yeah, I drive a
Where's the
little Nissan.
Mercedes?
I
Where's
drive
the
a little
Mercedes?
little
Come on.
Nissan. Yeah, but a lot of
Where,
people tease me about my Nissan.
where's the pointy shoes?
Yeah. Okay, so I don't do this, right? When you do this, when you're doing this that we're talking about, like all the things you're talking about,
Mm,
here's what I figured out. You make an assumption that everyone trying to sell real estate is who you need to speak to.
mm.
And you need to convince them. So you see a house for sale and you think, oh, they're a prospect. They got a house for sale.
Yeah, they're selling, we're buying. They should say yes if we say the right thing.
So as of today, and this is not anything new or anything, I'm just stating it to you because you're listening to me today, right? We're going to call that a cold audience.
What the sellers?
Everybody that has a house for sale.
Okay,
Like you drive in your neighborhood and you're going to find 5 houses for sale, right?
sure.
So those are a cold audience. Or in my world, people who wouldn't normally be interested in what we have to offer,
Right.
right?
Mm,
So the principle that I'm trying to get across here is if you were to pay enough money, you could talk to every one of those people,
mm-hmm.
right? You could reach every one of them and make an offer.
Yeah.
If you paid enough money, you would do that, right?
Mm.
And you still wouldn't reach the person you want to talk to. I remember I did this in my gas station when I first started learning about marketing, which was probably the mid 90s.
Okay.
I bought I forgot his name. Young kid. He had oh my god, what was his name?
For what kind of marketing? Real estate or
No, it
otherwise?
was just marketing. He did uh
Oh, the guy that
classified ads.
yeah, the guy that sold classifieds for pennies, And then if you get the right one, you just keep
Yeah.
spending more pennies and making more
Right.
money. Yeah, you too can make a lot of money in your own house sitting.
Well,
Yeah, that guy.
well, I'll tell you what. My wife at the time, my first wife at the time, she mocked me heavily because I paid like $40 for this course. But I will tell you this.
$40. What a waste.
I will tell you this. Because of that course, I designed an ad that was like 1 inch square or an inch, inch and a half by 1 inch. I took my customer base in my garage, my gas station, my auto repair facility from something like 300 customers to 1,800 in a year. And I
Wow.
spent $110 a week on that ad.
Mm-hmm.
So it worked. I got my money back on that course.
Oh yeah.
Okay, because I took my income from this is back in the 90s, like I don't know, 150,000 to like 700,000 or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
With some number like that. So I got my money back on it. But here's my point in telling you this. Suppose I had a diet remedy, right?
Yeah.
And I know it works, especially on women, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I posted an ad in the newspaper and let's say it cost me $500 for the ad, right?
Yeah.
Or we'll say $1,000 for the ad, right? And the circulation is 40,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
How many of those 40,000 people are going to be women that are trying to lose weight?
20,000.
Whatever. I don't know the number.
I know.
But
It's not all. It's not all of them.
and it's a little bit different nowadays but it used to be like when I learned this lesson, it was a little different. But if I took that same $1,000 and I put it in a magazine that airplane stewardesses read, because back in the day they had to keep their weight down, right? I mean, nowadays
Yeah.
it's not like that. But if I put it if I put that same $1,000 in a magazine that they read, that all stewardesses read because it was like a thing that they liked,
Mm-hmm.
how much different is that?
I mean, huge. You're actually going for the correct market.
Right. So this is where most go off the rails, only because it decreases your deal efficiency if you don't do this. And this is what I run into a lot is deal efficiency is off. In other words, the ratio in which you spend time looking for a motivated seller and making a deal is too expensive.
Mm.
See, or too long between deals, which makes booms and depressions with your income. I have a lot of money, I have no money. I have a lot of money, I have no money.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And sabotages your success.
Yep.
Okay. So I started off by saying, I don't do that.
Yeah. You don't try to convince people.
Right. And the reason why is because if I spend the time to sort through who I'm talking to, I'm just looking for the right guy and I have less to do.
Yeah.
So in other words, when I preempt my conversations, in other words, my marketing goes to the right I'm going to talk about that in a minute. The marketing finds me the right people.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have the concept that I'm going to convert everybody. I have the concept that some people, about 3% of the market, will consider my offers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So my second secret, amongst many that I'm going to give you today, is I try to repel, get that? I try to repel anyone I don't want to talk to first.
So you actually try to
Repel them.
really.
Yeah. And I know this is different because I've never talked like this before, especially with you, but I repel them. And whoever is left standing is who I want to spend my time on. Right? And is more likely to give me keys at the end of our conversation. Now, let me just go a little bit longer and I'll stop because I know you have questions, right? Which is all revealed. How I repel is all revealed in podcast number 374, which is called Stop. Don't try to I think it's supposed to, don't try to do a creative real estate deal in today's economy until you hear this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and there we talk about the difference between leads and engaged leads,
Right.
right? Which has not been revealed in creative real estate or in real estate until that podcast.
Mm.
Because I've not ever heard anybody speak of that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So in that podcast, I revealed a couple things. Number one, we talked about automation, AI, as we call it, artificial intelligence, which is AI, right? And we talked about what should AI do and what should we as humans do,
Right.
right? And you helped me with that because I had 2 points, but we ended up with 3 points when we talked on the podcast. It was my aha
yeah.
moment, right?
Yeah.
So the 3 things that AI should do for you is ask the seller, ask a seller, is a house for sale?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want an offer?
Mm.
And can we talk?
Mm.
Once they say yes, yes, and yes, that's the person we want to talk to. Okay. Now I'm going to stop there, but we're going to come back to this because when I get into the script, you were the one that noticed that in 4 minutes and 47 seconds, we know exactly what we're doing.
Yep.
Because of the script. So we're going to cover that before we're done.
Yeah.
Right. But just to prove my point here, let me give you an analogy of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Okay. Ever been in a room or a restaurant or a party and somebody drops a plate of dishes, a tray of dishes?
Uh-huh.
What happens?
Well, first everybody goes oops for the guy.
Yeah.
You should let the guy say oops for himself. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I'm not sure where you're going.
Well, everybody looks at it, right?
Yeah.
Everybody turns around and looks like, oh my God, what was that? It was scary, right?
Yep.
Or shocking or something you didn't expect, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, so now let's take that picture away. Now let's talk about you're someplace, right? Let's say you're again at a party, say at a birthday party.
Uh-huh.
Right? And a kid screams at the top of their lungs, "Mom!" Who's going to turn around and look?
Well, mom's definitely. All the moms are going to look.
There you go.
A lot of
moms. So it's moms, right?
Yeah.
All right. So let's take the same thing. You're at a birthday party, and somebody yells out, "Peter!"
Well, now let's take my family.
Okay.
I am Peter Coca-Cola the fourth.
Okay.
There used to be 6 of us. We're down to 4.
Okay.
So at our parties, when anybody yelled Peter, 6 people turned around at the family reunion.
You get my point.
But it was limited, at least the 6.
Right.
And then 5 of us would go, oh, you want that one. So we became, yeah.
So the point is this is your life. So I just explained to you, like, if you're trying to convert all the real estate, it's the dishes drop, right? Everybody turns around, everybody looks at you, but nobody's really curious. Nobody's really your client, right?
Yeah, you say, I buy houses. Like, yeah, big deal. So what?
Oh, well, I got a house for $200,000. You want to come look at it, right? And they're trying to sell it to you for cash.
Yeah.
All cash, no discount.
Yep.
Right? No terms, no monthly payments, none of that.
No, nothing.
Right? Or you can filter it down and you could be like at a party and mom, and just the moms look.
Oh.
I would say that is where most entrepreneurs, real estate people are in creative real estate. Is they're at the mom, like the mom, and like you said, at a birthday party, and 10 women turn around and look.
Yeah.
Like, are they talking to me?
Yeah.
What I'm talking about in my world is the last scenario, like you're at a party and somebody yells out, "Roman!" and only Roman turns around and looks.
Yep.
Because only Roman
is Roman. Sure, it's only one of them. Right. So it's getting very selective out the gate. That sure takes a lot of unnecessary waste and frustration.
So the point that I'm trying to make here is that the way to do this, and I know that some people might think that there's something sexy, more sexy about this, but honestly, if you understand what I'm telling you, it changes the whole dynamic of creative real estate. Because what you want to do is you want to get the attention of the right person, you want to build value, and then you want to make your offer,
Mm.
right? And that's the theory of it, which is what we're talking about today, right? That's the theory of it, but you want to get the attention of the right person. And when you say Roman in a crowd full of Englishmen, right? Because Roman's probably Russian, right? You're only going to have one guy in there that's named Roman,
That's right.
right? You would hope. It's
Yep.
very specific. So you get the attention of the right person, you present enough value, and then give. So this is what I can do for you, and then you present the offer. So by the time they get the offer, what are they waiting for? The offer. They want the value. They want all the good things you're telling them they can get.
Yeah. It sounds like we've made them open to it,
Right.
and they're interested. They're not just sitting there waiting you to finish so they can get off the phone.
Right. Or, yeah, exactly right. We'll leave it at that. Which is the reason why in our slot deal, which is a sandwich lease option transfer, which is flipping lease options, you know what I mean? Um, in episode number 360 and 370, I did it right this morning, 360 and 370, we talked about Grand Slam offer. We get their attention by saying, oh, so I understand. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to do this in a little while. Okay. So, uh, so we covered this concept in podcast number 375, how to convert more deals easily in today's economy. And the concept I'm talking about is dealing with engaged leads instead of just leads.
Yep.
Okay. So I know that this podcast may not be what you thought it was going to be up to this point, but I promise you by the time we get to the end, who you talk to makes a huge difference. So what I'm trying to explain here in the last 30 minutes is everybody selling a house is not your customer.
Mm-hmm.
You need to find the right seller to do deals. So why spend all the time and the money doing that when you can have automation do it for you? Right? So again, in podcast number 375, that podcast has revealed the difference between leads and engaged leads, which up until that podcast, nobody else has talked about. I dare you to go find it and send me a support ticket because I promise you, you won't be able to do it. All right. Then, I'm sorry, I did that wrong. So that was podcast number 374. Then in podcast number 375, I'm sorry, I said it wrong before. And 375, how to convert more deals easily. We did again what nobody else has done before. We named the exact traits or personalities or characteristics of each seller and which deal they're likely to be in. Right? So this is kind of like a scale, right?
Yeah, it's funny. You're really getting very, very specific, and we live in a world of too much generality. Like to sell hamburgers. Well, you don't sell hamburgers to vegetarians, and you don't sell hamburgers people just ate or that are too far away to get. So you have to get the right people at the right place. You're doing a lot of specifics on that.
Mhm.
Like what type of person would do owner financing? What type of person might do a different type of deal? That's pretty crazy.
So it is currently October when we're doing this podcast.
Yeah.
In January of this year, my dad passed away.
Mm-hmm.
He was 83. I believe my mom is 80 or 81.
Yep.
So for the past 9 months, because he died in the end of January, I have watched my mom and listen to my mom because I talk to her more than ever. I talk to my mom every couple days, which I never did my whole life, right? And I watched her come from completely like oblivion, like complete like doesn't know there's a world around her, completely introverted, completely unconnected to anything, up into grief, up through some anger, up through like some pain, up into like some, like right now she's in some cheerfulness, right? She's going through this cycle because my her and my dad were married 62 years, right?
Mhm.
So my point is in each one of those uh, cycles, I don't know what else to call them points that she had to go through, she had a different way of thinking. Her reality was different in each one of those.
Sure.
You know, like when she's in grief, it's like it's never going to change. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
when she was in oblivion, it's like, what's the sense? You know,
Sure.
and then she gets mad, like, why did he die before me?
Oh.
You know what I mean? And then there's pain, like, oh, you know, it hurts so much. I miss him, you know. And then the more she came up the scale, the more the way she looked at things changed.
Sure.
And the more of the outside world she absorbed as part of her process.
Hmm.
Does this make sense to you?
Yeah, been through it. I've seen people change to different emotional levels. We see it,
Right.
but yeah, you've been right in the middle, hot and heavy with that.
So my point is that this is the way it is with sellers.
Huh.
They have different categories that they go in. So let's just start at the top. They like the day they bought the house and they got the keys to their house.
Mm-hmm.
That exhilaration and all the things they're going to do. And then as life serves them, right, their plate, there's losses in there.
Yeah,
And they go down the scale. And when they go down the scale of the losses, and I know I'm being very profound here, but when they go down the scale, it changes how they take care of the house,
for sure.
right? So the more they head towards apathy, right? Like they go down the scale, like they're enthusiastic and then they're kind of cheerful and then they kind of get bored and then they go down, through like an anger band and then they go down into like fear, sympathy, fear, you know, down into like heading towards death, like sympathy, right? And this is their viewpoint about the house. It's about life because other things are whacking them around. So, anyways, I went off on a tangent there. I want you to know that that's where my head was at. So when we're talking about the traits of the seller, which we broke down in podcast number 375 in great deals. I didn't explain what I'm explaining to you right now, but my point is that when you start, once you get an engaged lead, means that they want to talk to you about selling the house, right? An
Mm-hmm.
engaged lead usually means they're flexible, they're willing to listen, right?
Yeah,
Uh, and once they start talking to you about, like creative financing or different ways that you can do this, you'll start to notice that these traits that I named in podcast number 375 start peeking through the conversation.
hmm.
Okay, so you see where we're going here. I know this is probably, people were looking for a lot more sexier. They were looking for scripts or whatever, which I'm going to give. But I want you to understand. So the first thing we did is we picked and choose who we're going to market to,
Right.
right? Like what type of deal do we want?
Mm-hmm.
Like If we have no money and we have no training and we don't want to do contractor work, then we're going to probably do a slot deal, right? And if we're a contractor and we're looking for work for our guys, we're going to look for retail deals, retail deals.
Right.
If we have a lot of money and we just want to invest, we probably look for owner finance deals, and you could put deals. You know what I mean? So it's like different uh, different.
Well, you need to find which opportunities you can actually do.
Right.
I think we called it like your criteria once, right? Like, what's your
Right.
criteria?
Right.
You go, oh, I want to do houses. Do you have contractors? No. You got any money? No. Do you have? No. Well, what do you expect to be doing then? You know?
Right. So once we figure that out, then we know what marketing we need to do.
Yeah.
Once we start talking to the right people, they start responding, and we weed out through automation the engaged leads and the regular leads. So we're now talking about the engaged leads, right?
Yeah.
And then once we start talking to the engaged leads, we break it down a little bit further based on the traits of the seller, based on the different deal structures. Like, for example, the house needs $20,000 worth of work. So that's probably going to be a rehab retail deal, or it's going to be something like a subject to deal, right? And I go over those traits. So what I'm saying is as we go down the scale and we break it down, it makes it easier for you, and it's less convincing that you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
You're like in their zone of like, oh, like their radar is on it now. Like you piqued their interest, right? All right, so let's stop for a moment and clarify something right now. There are two major components in every deal.
Okay.
One is the raw math.
Yeah.
The other is the human side of the deal. Right? So obviously the math is math, rate of return, right? I talk about this very often with the money now, money monthly, money later. That's your calculator. That's what you need to figure out when you're looking at a deal. How do I make money now? How do I make money monthly? How do I make money later?
Sure.
Like a slot deal is just money now. There's no money monthly. There's no money later.
Right.
So the least amount of these that you have is the least amount of time you spend on a deal.
Sure.
So if you're just going to make $5,000 on a slot deal, that's awesome, but you should do it within 30 days, and you should not spend 4 months, and that should not be the only deal you're working on.
Right.
Right. Even though $5,000 is a lot of money, you should do more than that.
Right? Well, in real estate, we talk bigger numbers, 50, 60, 90,000, but for 5, nothing shabby.
Right.
But you can make that in a month working a job. So you should make it in a month with real estate. Just get it done.
Right. All right. We have to dazzle the seller's emotions, as well as the math, which is what we're talking about today, right?
Yeah, the math can work. I mean, I love when we see new guys in the business. They do the math. They go, "Oh, I can do this one," and they call the guy expecting they're going to say yes because the math works for us.
Sean used to do that to me, my other partner. He'd say, "I got a subject to deal I want you to talk to." So I call up thinking that he pre-qualified them for subject to find out after, literally it took me a month to figure it out. But after a while, I figured out, oh, he's doing the math. This is pre our creative REI reply calculator that we have inside of our system.
Yeah.
He was doing the math, and he figured out that they should be a subject to, but he never talked to him. He called me up and told me to close them on a subject to deal, and he never had that conversation.
It's kind of important to talk to the seller to see that's what you're talking about. The math is one thing, but the person's motivation, their interest, they don't want to do it. Why? They just don't want to. It has nothing to do with logic. My God.
Yeah. All right. So now let's move on to secret number 3. You should not waste time trying to convince someone's emotions to be a certain way. Peter, I need you to cry right now.
No, okay.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Peter, I need, or if you're crying, Peter, I need you to be happy right now. You're in a funeral, and you stand up and say, "Okay, I want everybody to be happy right now.
Cheerful, cheer up now."
Yeah. Okay. It doesn't work that way. But instead, We use the emotion as our motion,
Ooh.
right? We've talked about this before. My wife's ex-husband, which you know, his name is Jim.
Yes.
He was a wrestler, and I remember him telling me one time, and you know this, that in wrestling the trick is to use the motion to pin the guy to the mat.
Yeah.
In other words, if a guy's coming at you, you don't try to stop him or block him, but instead, it's probably in all the other, the kung fu and all that other stuff, or
Yeah. You use
Taiwan.
their motion. If they're coming at you, you step aside and have them fly by you and trip them or
Right.
something.
Yeah. So you're using the motion already to your advantage, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's what we're doing here is we're using their emotions as the motion. It's the thing they're already thinking, it's what they're already feeling, right? So for example, the the seller can't or doesn't want to pay fees or closing costs. So why try to convince them differently? You know they don't, like a for sale by owner, you know they don't want to pay fees or closing costs, right? So the trick is knowing that as fast as possible, right? And use it to your advantage, which is why I came up with the traits, because if we see the traits, that's the motion. It's already moving. I'm sorry, that's the emotion.
Hmm.
And you're going to use that motion or that emotion to like keep them moving because you're going to keep. In other words, Dan Kenny named this very adroitly many years ago. Get in the conversation they're already having in their head.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Right. Find out what's needed and wanted and give it to the seller because that's what they're yearning for. They're already having this conversation. If I could just get rid of this property.
Yeah.
Right. Or, if I could just walk away with $5,000, I'd be happy. If I just, most of them isn't a number. It's just if I could walk away with something, I'd be
Right.
happy.
Right. But you're finding out what they want to do, and then that starts tipping us off to, well, this particular type of deal would do that for the person.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So
Yeah.
is all this making sense?
Yeah. So I mean, the emotion that they're feeling will give you an idea of what they're willing to do. I mean, hunger isn't a feeling, but somebody's hungry. Believe me, they'll get up to go to get some food.
Right.
They'll eat. So whatever the emotion is, that should tip you off
Well,
to what
that's a
you
good
want to
point,
do.
Peter, because I had COVID for 4 months. I had COVID pneumonia and almost died from it. Right. And it's a good point because like there were points where I didn't feel like I could get out of bed, but I had to pee.
Yeah.
So I went through the pain to relieve the pain. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you go to the dentist when it hurts too much not to go to the
Right.
dentist.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Okay,
Yep.
good. So up
Yep.
until now, I preempted you, and I've got you to where I can start talking to you about scripts
Okay.
because it's not just a script; it's a script to the right person. So the main point that I'm trying to make here is that I repel everybody else. So what I'm doing by picking the right list, I'm repelling the wrong list. I don't want a realtor sale. I mean, I do now because of the Grand Slam offer, but for a long time, I don't want all cash deals,
Yeah.
right? So by picking the right list, you repel the wrong people.
Yep.
Then by using automation, right, and pre screening with those questions like, is there a house for sale? Do you want an offer? Right? And can we talk? You'll repel everyone that doesn't have a house for sale, doesn't want an offer. You'd be surprised how many people don't want an offer. And more importantly, you'll be surprised at how many people don't want to talk. That's the big one. Can we talk? And you're repelling these people that are resisting talking to you. Send me an offer
Right.
on text. Send
Yeah.
me your offer by email. Here's my email. Send me the offer and I'll take a look at it.
Yeah. Jesus.
Right? You're repelling all that. So you see what I'm talking about? So first you repel people with your list, then you repel people with your automation and engagement. Then once you get on the phone with them, you're going to start to notice their traits and you're going to repel more. So you're siphoning down, right?
Yeah.
Now, Here's the important part. We're going to get right into the meat and potatoes now. So up till now, we've been adroitly, in other words, very skillfully and cleverly repelling all the people that we can call suspects,
Right.
or those who are obviously not looking for our offers or want to do something else. So we're trying to get rid of them because we don't want to talk to them, right? And by repelling those, we have allowed the flexible sellers or the sellers we want to talk to come to the surface. Right? It's like oil and water, right?
Yep.
And by doing this, it will affect our efficiency ratio on how many sellers we talk to and deals we close, right? And 2/3 of the work is done for you now because we did this filtering with the list and with the automation and just thinking a little bit about who do we want to talk to.
Yeah.
This doesn't take long. It's taken me way longer to explain it to you than what it really actually takes, right? But 2/3 of the work is done for you, which is the big secret because people think that I'm really good on the phone. Okay, so I get that. I've been doing it a long time. I've talked to thousands of sellers, but what I have learned is who do I talk to? Who do I pre-qualify and how do I get them done? How do I get their attention? How do I build value and then make my offer so that they really want it? How do I do that?
Yeah.
Right? So, which means you'll need less skill when getting on the phones if you do it this way. Because a motivated seller says what?
They say yes a lot. I
Yeah,
mean,
they say yes more than they say no.
they
So,
usually they just say yes. I don't. The guys I've worked with said yes to everything. Yep, I'll do that.
right.
Yep, I'll do that. So I'm not going to make any payments for 2 months. Okay. No, I don't pay interest. I'm just going to pay a flat rate. Like, okay. And it's crazy. But, well, how many times do you have to say to people, find a motivated seller? It's not create a motivated seller, convince somebody. But you're really expounding on what that's like to find that right person.
Right. And this is the success that most rookies don't realize is there. It's not the conversion. It's not, the gruelingness of being on the phone 3 hours a day, right? This is supposed to eliminate all that, get some of the automation to do that for you so you could make 1 or 2 phone calls a day and make a deal. It cuts down, especially those people that have a job, it cuts down on all the expense, right? You're getting super efficient now, right?
Sure. They don't. Well, they don't have to. If you got a job, you don't have time to spend hours on something like that. You don't want to. Why would you waste your time?
Right. All right. So now, before I get into the script, one more thing that I want to mention, and that's in podcast number 372, How to Meet the Creative Real Estate Seller Properly. I cover in great detail how we use the AI intelligence, like we talked about, and the automation to repel the leads and do the scheduling. Okay. So I cover that in podcast number 372.
Mm-hmm.
But more important, when we stop the automation and turn on the human part, when do we engage?
Right.
Right. So that's really important because nobody's clarified that up to the point because AI is new.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to my partner last night, and if I do, and not if I do, I know we're going to do it. Sean doesn't even know this. He actually has. I listened to it, and I was blown away.
What?
We are actually going to release before the end of the year. We are going to release an actual AI that will close deals. I heard it last night.
Really? After what?
Just,
After
just,
what you just said?
yep. We actually, because I'm writing all this stuff, I know how to train the robot.
Wow.
So here's the thing: is when I'm talking about with the AI is the qualification point. So now I've kind of clarified the two of them in my mind. I know what to do with the other one.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Okay, now I want to talk about the first 5 minutes of every phone call. You said you named it 6 months ago. It takes 4 minutes, 47 seconds. You tested it.
Yeah.
That's the average,
Yeah.
right? So, so now I want to talk about the first 5 minutes of every call, which is the final secret I'm going to give to you today, and that's how you qualify somebody to give them your time.
Yep.
Your time is valuable. So, what you're looking for, this is the product that somebody has to give to you to make sure you stay on the phone with them.
Yeah.
In other words, in my world, I hang up, they don't hang up. And here's what I'm looking for. Are they willing to receive my help? And if I give them what they want, I'm their hero. That's what you're looking for. And you could do that the first couple minutes of every phone call, right? And here's the script we use to find out in the first 4 minutes and 47 seconds. Number one, do you have a house for sale? This may seem crazy, right?
Yeah.
This may seem impossible, but they might have a contract, right?
Yeah. Oh, they can have a contract. They change their mind. They rented it. Between the time we got a name and we get on the phone, they rented it. It could be the wrong number occasionally. The
Change
systems.
their mind,
Yeah.
right? So you have to ask, do you have a house for sale?
Yeah.
So even though the AI did it for us and pre-qualified, which from the time the AI spoke to them to the time we spoke to them could be 3-4 days later, and they could have taken a contract, right? Is the house for sale? So the first question is hey Pete, my name is Bill Hawthorne. We've been texting one another. You got a chance to talk. So you get
Mhm.
through the pleasantries, right?
Mhm.
And then I say, okay, the first thing I need to know is the house still for sale? Oh yeah. Okay, good.
Mhm.
Then I ask, whose name is on the deed? Because you want to make sure you're speaking to the right person.
Yeah.
Because too many times I'll be on the phone with somebody and they're very pleasant. They answer all my questions, have all the information I need, know everything I need to know. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll present this to my mom because I'm helping her. And
Yep.
I'll talk to her. And it wasn't even the person I needed to talk to. And I just spent 45 minutes on the phone with them thinking that I had a deal. And she likes it, or he likes it. It's usually a girl, but she likes it, and she'll talk to her mom about it.
Sure.
I just wasted 45 minutes. Oh, by the way, probably about 90% of those deals don't go through. Okay.
Sure.
So we ask, how much you asking? How many is the house for sale? Whose name is on the deed? Then we ask the next question: how much you selling the house for? I'll often say, how much is it?
How about how much you asking?
Right. Yep.
Because that can change.
Yep. Now, whatever the response for the price, you say this. And this is the part where you should stop the video or whatever you're listening to, the recording, and you should write these words down. Well, the best way I can pay whatever they told you, we'll say 200,000.
Yep.
Say they're asking 200,000. Well, the best way I can pay 200,000 for the property in as is condition and with no closing costs is to give you monthly payments without any landlord obligations on your part until I can pay you off. Is it possible we could talk about that? Or is it possible I'll give it to you again. Is it possible we could talk about how that works? I'll do it again. Well, the best way I can pay you, I'll do that again. Well, the best way I can pay 200,000 for the property and as is condition and with no closing costs is to give you monthly payments without any landlord obligations on your part until I can pay you off. Is it possible we could talk about how that works? Now, here's the amazing thing, and this is when our lives, meaning your and my life, changed. At least my life did, anyways. This is powerful, and here's why. In just a few minutes, we're going to find out if their emotions or their human willingness is either need or greed.
Uh-huh.
We're going to know in the first 3 or 4 minutes, do they need to sell, or are they selling for greed? Is it money?
Yeah.
Right? If they say yes, that they're willing to talk about the payments, right? The script goes on to find out how much they will take for a monthly payment, how long they're willing to wait until they get paid off, and if they want a deposit. We only talk about that if they bring it up.
Yeah.
So the purpose of this phone call is to get 4 pieces of information. 1 is price. 2 is the monthly payments and how much. 3 is the duration of those payments, how long they'll go before they need to be paid off. And 4 is a deposit only if they talk about them. That is all you ever need on a phone conversation. You don't even need to be scripted for that. Just get those 4 pieces of information.
That's the math.
Right? That's the math. And it will provoke. And what we used to do is, so I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't write that down. So that's the math.
Yeah.
So let's just do this real quick. I know we're rolling up on an hour here. So Peter, how much you asking for the house?
200,000.
Okay. How did you come up with that price?
Just kind of comps, looked online. Some of the houses in my neighborhood.
Good. So the first question was the math. The second question was the emotions.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I
how
guess.
it works. That's how it works. Okay.
Yeah.
So you got comps. Okay. So how did you decide that this was the right price?
Right. Sometimes they give you a really ridiculous number, so you're in.
I want you to
Yeah.
answer the question. Like you're saying, you
Yeah.
got comps and everything. So I'm like,
Yeah.
so what was the final thing that made you think this is the right number?
Oh, just the comps. I went online, just other houses in the neighborhood.
Right. So I'm going to tell you right now, I just found out in the second question or third question I asked him, he's ultra conservative because I not only asked the question, but I rechecked the question to find out why. He's ultra conservative, 99% chance it's greed. It's not need.
How do you figure that? Because wouldn't anybody just look for a comp?
No, but you're like, just the way you're talking to me and the way you're responding, right? Because the guy that's in need, like, I have no idea. I don't know. I just need to get rid of it.
Oh, I got you.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just the way they respond then. So how did you come up with that price? Right? So when you're asking the questions, the 4 questions, the price, the payments, the duration, and deposit, if they talk about it, you could just ask the whys.
How,
I
why?
mean, yeah. I mean, I mostly do whys, but ask them, how did you come up with that? Where did you get that? When did you do that? That kind of stuff. I prefer you don't do that because it's a waste of time. Just ask them, how did you come up with the price? Payment, there is no script. Payment's no script at all.
Yeah.
Peter, how much do you pay a month now for the property?
Oh, everything. $1,275.
And that's with the taxes and insurance and everything. There's nothing else.
Yeah, it's everything.
Good. That's how much I'll pay. Okay.
Okay.
That's payment. You don't need to negotiate on nothing. There you go. And if he says, no, I want more, then you say, okay, how much more? And then you negotiate from there.
Yeah.
Well, I want 400. Okay, well, you take 200.
Yeah.
Right? All right. So now here's the final punchline, right? 97% of these people, when you ask them, can we talk about monthly payments, will say no.
Yeah.
I don't want to do monthly payments. I want all cash.
Yeah.
And we used to stumble with this, and I had no trouble with it, but my students did because they haven't talked to enough people, right? This means that they're greed. Their emotions are greed. And you have to use those emotions to get their attention. Remember, I told you use their emotions to get motion,
Yep.
right? So at this point, we move off of the script that I'm telling you about, and we move into the Grand Slam offer, which we explained in episode 360 and 370, right? And you say something like this. Okay, Peter, what if I told you I could get you $282,000 instead of the $200,000 you're asking for the property? Would you be interested? At this point, you swelled their greed glands. So you're using the motion of their emotions. So if it was need, like, no, I need to get rid of it, you would go down that road and talk about the other points, the payments and the duration, right? But
Mhm.
if it's greed, you're not going to do any of that because they don't want to talk about payments. So what you talk about is greed. So what if I could get you $282,000 for that $200,000 house? At this point, you swell their greed glands and you make it impossible for them to say no, right? Or at least feel foolish for not finding out what you're talking about. They need to check to make sure it's not a scam. So they're going to ask more questions. The point is, are they engaged?
Mhm.
Are they interested? Right? So let's go back to what I said earlier. So I want to get their attention, I want to build value, and then give my offer. So I'm going to give them $282,000 for a $200,000 house. Have I got them in? Have I got their attention?
You got their attention. I'd
Okay.
say they're a bit engaged.
And I'm going to show them how to make an extra $82,000 in this house. So they're engaged. And I build value. At this one sentence, I built the value. Yeah, I'm going to give you an extra $82,000. So there's value there, right? Right? Okay. It builds everything you want to talk to a seller about into like a couple of sentences. Right? Does that make sense?
Right, because if they say no to all that stuff, let's be honest, they're a dumbass. I'm sorry. No, serious. I mean, if they got the whole story, they couldn't do it because you're not going to go into it today, but we show them how we give them the extra money between all the financing, how
We
it
break
works.
it down, and it's absolute math. So we use the emotions to get the motion, and then when we break it down, it's just 1 + 1 = 2, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know that."
Right, because they're saying they won't do it because the math, they want more money. So okay, we'll give you more money, and then
Here's
we
the math
circle
on how to do it.
and we circle around back to the terms deal. Because for
Right.
$80,000, how long would you wait to get $80,000? A year, 2 or 3? Wouldn't you wait?
Right.
Would be worth it?
Yeah,
Time
but
and
here's the
money go
thing.
back and forth.
Here's the thing. You're
What?
not saying that correctly.
What?
Because if they were to sell for cash, it would cost them 15% for closing costs, which means they're only getting 170.
Mm-hmm.
So 170 minus 282 is $110,000. So how long would you wait for $100,000 or $110,000?
Right. I've even gone further to ask them, like, what's your equity? I had one. I don't know if I still have it, but if he sold the house, he'd make $25,000. Period.
Right.
Because he didn't own it. He had so much debt on it. 25,000. Doing the Grand Slam offer, he would make like 100,000. So it isn't
Right.
percentage wise, it's a huge difference.
Right.
So I mean, you can play that a couple different ways, but you really show them the
Okay,
extras
so
that it gets.
let's wrap up here. So it's more about repelling the wrong leads
Mm-hmm.
and letting the right leads, the right engaged leads get to you. Right?
Yep. Yep.
Then it's not about your skill or my skill. It's more about resonating fast with the seller
Yeah.
and making it almost impossible for them to say no to you. right? And the last secret, most deals are made in the pre-qualifying, which we're calling the automation, and in the qualifying step, which is the human script, rather than being a top-notch salesman or having hypnotic math or something that impresses the seller so they say yes, which, by the way, those either ghost you later on or they change their mind. Because somebody will come along and say, why are you doing that? Oh, I didn't think of that. And then they change their mind and they ghost you. Right? So ironically, Peter, I have never made a deal like that before, trying to trick someone. I've always been it has always been the stuff I speaketh of today that does it. It's pre-qualifying the leads, it's engaging, it's all these things that I work on. And you know this because getting me on the phones is not easy because I'm not going to waste. I've talked to thousands of sellers. I don't need to hear what they have to say.
Mhm.
I only want the ones that are going to like I have a chance of making a deal. Otherwise, I'm not going to spend my time.
Yeah.
I have a coaching client. He just texted me. We have a deal, a slot deal that we're trying to do, and we can make $100,000. And he keeps texting me. Did you call the guy? Did you call the guy? Did you call the guy? And I'm going to text him as soon as we're done with this podcast and say, dude, no. I spoke to him once. He was supposed to call me. He was going to talk to his wife, and he was going to call me back in a couple of days. I haven't heard from him. He's a no.
Mm.
Right?
You're waiting for them to reach to us instead of us always chasing them.
Why should I chase him? He's a no. He's not motivated. He wasn't motivated when I was on the phone with him.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea. He was in total conservatism. Right?
Yeah, he wanted you to convince him, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't do it because if he did, he wouldn't. Because I said to him, which part of the conversation that we just had that you need to talk to your wife about? Which part? Which part of that conversation? I mean, which part of today's conversation do you need help with her from?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I got to talk to her about everything. That means I didn't close him.
Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 meaning that I actually am going to buy the house from you. Where are you at? Oh, I'm at a 4 or 5. Why should I chase that guy?
Yeah.
But my coaching client, that's the only deal he has.
Yeah.
Because he's not doing what I'm telling you to do today. All right, cool. Make sure you go in the description of this podcast and grab the link because there is a hot, I just did it just recently, a few weeks ago. There's a hot podcast in there. And it's actually not a podcast. It's a training I did with a closed group of people. I think there's only about 30 or 40, maybe 50 people on the call. So you should go check that out. Also, make sure you subscribe to us and like us and leave us a review on how we're doing. And if for some reason you have a topic you want us to talk about, something you feel like we skipped or something you want us to elaborate on, I'll turn that into a podcast. Just send me a support ticket over there at flippinghousesforrookies.com. Top right-hand side support ticket. Okay? With that said, we're over now. Oh, my last little thing.
What?
Podcast number 377.
Uh-huh.
I haven't written this yet. I only wrote the title, so if it changes, don't execute me. But I think it's going to be this. I got to create a real estate deal. Now what do I do?
Bill, you think you're funny. I'm on these real estate Facebook groups in my area just to see what comes up. I'll probably cancel this. But I got a blah 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 deal. What do I do now?
Yeah. That's why I'm going to do the podcast.
I got a $3 million apartment complex in Atlanta, but I need $100,000 like pronto. What do I do?
Exactly.
Punt, dude. Punt.
All right, we're over now. Thanks for all your support. Thanks for listening. And I hope we helped you today. We got into a lot of theory today. We got deep. We dove in the deep end today. All right, have a good week. Make sure you flourish and prosper. Thank you.